Halifax student encampment cleared out by the cops. Quebec's healthcare is rapidly outpacing the rest of Canada in how fast it's privatizing. A new study shows that more than 100,000 units that could be long-term rentals are held hostage by short-term rental platforms. Racist riot follows memorial for girls killed in English knife attack, and more than 100 people are dead from torrential rains in India and Pakistan. Good morning. It's Wednesday, July 31st. Yep, the last day of July. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. First to Halifax, where Dalhousie University has shut down the student encampment called Al Zaytoun University. CTV News' Jesse Thomas is reporting that over the weekend, students were given trespass notices from the university. 30 or so activists stayed on campus anyway. And so on Monday, with the help from the cops, students were forced out of the encampment, which had been set up at Studley campus. The university even closed the campus and forced all employees and students to stay home for the day. Thomas notes that the students were, quote-unquote, peaceful over the course of the 78-day occupation. The group Students for the Liberation of Palestine Chibuktuk said that they will continue to struggle for the university to disclose investments in Israel and to divest from any fund fueling Israel's war. Next to Quebec, where that province's health system is becoming private at a rate that fast outpaces the rest of Canada. 780 doctors in the province have opted out of the public system in the past year. Compare that to the rest of Canada, and only 14 doctors have done the same. That number was up from 641 doctors the year before. This information is contained in the latest report into the state of the Canada Health Act, as reported by Montreal Gazette's Aaron Durfell. Quebec was fined $42 million, an amount that Durfell says is, quote, by far the highest of any province, unquote, for allowing for illegal charges for medically necessary diagnostic services, which is a violation of the Canada Health Act. Under the guise of Quebec's jurisdiction, Quebec has refused to give data to the federal government about the reliance on private for-profit healthcare services. Durfell struggled to get any government official, whether in Quebec or federally, to comment on these stats. But one government rep in Quebec said that it's all right because 97% of Quebec doctors are still participating in the public system. And in case you're wondering if this privatization has given us better health services, Durfell reminds us that there are more than 50,000 Quebecers who are waiting for a consultation with an orthopedic surgeon, and almost 33,000 people's wait is pushed them well beyond what is considered medically necessary. One thing missing in Durfell's report, though, is the role that the previous Liberal government played in setting all of this in motion. That government, led primarily by doctor politicians, opened the door to this privatization, and the coalition Avenir Quebec has been all but too willing to continue the trends. And, the Liberals were in power for almost 15 years, but it even goes back before that. This is deeply rooted and quite a peculiarity of the Quebec system. Next, Canada has seen a rapid rise in the number of housing units that are being rented out as short-term rentals. Since 2017, that number has increased by 60%. Of the units that could be used as someone's rental apartment full-time, those units rose by 80% on the short-term rental market. That means that 107,266 units that could be long-term dwellings were taken out of the housing market so that someone can make a quick buck. Compare that to 2017, when there were 58,441 short-term rental units. The provinces with the highest number of potential long-term units being used as short-term rentals were PEI and British Columbia. And if you're lucky enough to live in a tourist area like I am, well, the number of units that could be long-term rental units rises significantly. The report from Global News' Uday Rana notes that in Whistler, the number of short-term rental apartments that someone could live in full-time was 35% of all housing stock. Former NDP hack turned Airbnb flack Nathan Rotman denied that his company plays any role in the housing crisis. But luckily, Rana found a real estate agent who asked the right question. Quote, these units are being used as standalone hotel rooms for investor profit rather than as housing. We in Canada value investor profit over housing, unquote, said John Pesalis. Next to international news, and first to the UK. That country is reeling after the tragic news of a 17-year-old who entered a local dance class and stabbed several girls. The girls were at a Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga workshop that was basically a summer camp when the teenager entered armed with a knife. 3 girls were killed. Alice da Silva Aguilar, who was 9, Elsie Stancombe, who was 7, and Bibi King, who was 6. 8 other children and 2 adults are hospitalized still from the attacks. The adults and 5 of the children are in critical condition. The suspect was born in Cardiff and lives about 5 kilometers from Southport, where the attack happened. He hasn't yet been charged. With low gun ownership in the UK, gun murders are rare, but knife attacks are increasingly common. But the vast majority of knife attacks are not mass murders, hearkening the tragedy in Dunblane, where a man shot and killed 16 school children in 1996. Indeed, these kinds of mass murders are rare in the UK. Now, as if it wasn't bad enough, the fascist group, the English Defence League, started a riot outside of a mosque that was near where the attacks happened. The racists threw bricks through the mosque's windows and torched police vehicles. The riot broke out after a vigil at the centre of Southport. One video posted by the Liverpool Post is of a woman holding a sign that says, "Hope not hate, racists not welcome here." She is being physically and verbally assaulted for having this sign. And finally, more landslide news, but this time in India and Pakistan. At least 93 people have been killed in southern India. The slides hit the hilly areas in Kerala State's Wayanad district. More than 3,000 people have been displaced by the slides, which were caused by heavy rains. Indian officials didn't say how many victims are missing or trapped, and local media said that most of the victims are tea estate workers. And in Pakistan, at least 14 people have died from flash flooding. 11 of them were from the same family. The family was sleeping in the basement of a house in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province when the water came in too fast for them to escape. More than 60 people have died in July due to heavy rains already, and the most damage has been in Punjab and Balochistan. Those are your headlines for Wednesday, July 31st. I'm Nora. You're listening to this podcast at sannynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Switch to the new feed now. You only have 3 more days before we're out. Well, I mean, you can do it anytime between now and September, but don't find yourself surprised in October when you're like, I haven't heard a new episode of Sandy Nora in a long time because you didn't switch. Switch now. Do yourself the favor. Listen to us in the new feed, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.